Have you ever wondered how a single war can change the course of history and set the stage for the rise and fall of empires? Picture, if you will, the ancient world, a time when the might of the city-states held sway. One such conflict, the Peloponnesian War, was a catalyst for profound change. This was no ordinary war, but a turning point that shaped the course of ancient history. Dive with me into the depths of history as we unravel the chain of events that culminated in the epic Peloponnesian War. Like all great conflicts, the Peloponnesian War had its roots in power struggles and alliances. The story begins with the rise of two cities: Athens, the shining beacon of democracy and culture, and Sparta, the military powerhouse. Athens, fresh from its victory against the Persians, was basking in a golden age. It was a time of great thinkers and artists, of democracy in its infancy, and of an empire growing in wealth and power. But with power comes envy and fear, and Athens was no exception. On the other side was Sparta, a city-state built on discipline, strength, and an unparalleled military. While Athens blossomed with art and philosophy, Sparta honed its war machine, its citizens living for and by the sword. These two powers stood at the helm of two significant alliances: the Delian League led by Athens, and the Peloponnesian League, under the rule of Sparta. The Delian League was originally formed to continue the fight against Persia, but over time, Athens began to use it to build its own empire. This didn't sit well with its allies, many of whom felt more like subjects than partners. Meanwhile, the Peloponnesian League was Sparta's answer to the growing Athenian threat. It was a military alliance, a solid wall of city-states standing against Athenian expansion. The tension between these two leagues was palpable, and it was only a matter of time before it boiled over. And when it did, it was a small conflict that lit the fuse. The city of Corcyra, an ally of Athens, was attacked by Corinth, a member of the Peloponnesian League. Athens stepped in to help, and thus violated a peace treaty it had with Sparta. Sparta, feeling threatened and disrespected, demanded satisfaction. But Athens, high on its power, refused to back down, and so the die was cast. With tension simmering, the stage was set for a war that would engulf the Greek world. In 431 BC, the fiery spark of conflict ignited into a full-blown war. The mighty city-states of Athens and Sparta, once allies against the Persian Empire, now found themselves locked in a bitter struggle for dominance. This was the beginning of the Peloponnesian War, a conflict that would last for more than 2 decades, and forever change the face of ancient Greece. In the early years of the war, Athens was led by the brilliant statesman Pericles. His strategy was to avoid land battles against the superior Spartan army, and instead rely on the Athenian navy to harass the enemy. He proposed a defensive approach, pulling the population of Attica within the city walls of Athens, while the fleet maintained supply lines and launched naval attacks. However, this strategy came with a heavy price. In 430 BC, a devastating plague struck Athens, ravaging the overcrowded city. The Plague of Athens, as it came to be known, decimated the population, wiping out as much as 1/3 of the Athenian people, including Pericles himself. This was a blow from which Athens struggled to recover. The loss of their leader, and the heavy toll of the plague, severely weakened Athens. But it did not break their spirit. In the midst of the turmoil, Athens embarked on an ambitious endeavor: the Sicilian expedition. In 415 BC, they launched a massive naval assault on the city of Syracuse in Sicily. They hoped that victory would bolster their resources and weaken Sparta's allies. But the expedition turned out to be a catastrophic failure. The Sicilian expedition was a turning point in the war. The Athenians suffered heavy losses both in manpower and morale. Their fleet was decimated, and thousands of soldiers were either killed or enslaved. This disaster shifted the balance of power in favor of Sparta, marking a change in fortunes in the ongoing war. Despite the setbacks, Athens refused to surrender. They managed to rebuild their fleet, and even scored some victories against the Spartans. However, the tide of the war had irrevocably turned. The once invincible Athenian Empire was now on the defensive, fighting for survival against the relentless Spartan onslaught. As the war raged on, neither Athens nor Sparta was ready to back down, setting the stage for a dramatic conclusion. The Peloponnesian War, with its twists and turns, was far from over. The remaining chapters of this epic conflict were yet to be written, filled with battles, betrayals, and a desperate struggle for supremacy. The fate of ancient Greece hung in the balance, forever shaped by the unfolding of this monumental war. The final years of the Peloponnesian War brought unexpected turns and a bitter end. As the war dragged into its final phase, The Battle of Aegospotami marked a decisive turning point. This was no ordinary battle. It was an ingenious Spartan trap that saw the Athenian navy, once the pride of their empire, utterly decimated. The Spartans, led by their admiral Lysander, caught the Athenian fleet off guard, destroying nearly 200 ships, and effectively crippling Athens' naval power. With their navy in ruins, Athens was left vulnerable. Their walls, once a formidable barrier, could not keep out the starvation that now threatened the city. The once thriving metropolis, the heart of an empire, was brought to its knees. And in 404 BC, with no other choice, Athens surrendered. A city that had been a beacon of democracy and culture for the Greek world was now under the heel of Sparta, their bitter rival. The Spartan victory marked the end of the Peloponnesian War, but the aftermath was messy and far from glorious. The Athenian Empire, which had once ruled the Aegean Sea, was no more. Its city walls were torn down, its navy disbanded, and its democracy briefly replaced with a Spartan-appointed oligarchy known as the 30 Tyrants. But the Spartans' moment of glory was fleeting. Their dominance, built on the back of a military alliance known as the Peloponnesian League, was shaky at best. They struggled to maintain control over the Greek world, facing rebellions and resistance at every turn. Their rigid military society, while successful in war, proved ill-equipped to manage a vast empire in peace. The end of the war also saw a shift in power dynamics within the Greek world. The balance of power was no longer concentrated in two dominant city-states, but fragmented among several. This shift led to a period of instability and conflict, sowing the seeds for future wars. The war had left deep scars on the Greek world. Cities were devastated, populations decimated, and the cultural and political landscape of Greece was forever altered. The ideals of democracy, so fiercely defended by Athens, were now under threat. The golden age of Greece had come to a tumultuous end. The Peloponnesian War had ended, but its impact on the Greek world was far from over. The ripple effects of the Peloponnesian War extended far beyond the Greek city-states. As the dust of the war settled, Greece was left in a state of desolation and despair. The war had a profound effect on Greek culture, politics, and society. The vibrant democracy of Athens was overthrown, replaced by the rule of the 30 Tyrants. This oligarchic regime, backed by Sparta, was marked by severe repression and the curtailing of civil liberties. The war also led to a shift in Greek culture. The ideals of honor, bravery, and heroism that were once celebrated in Greek society were now replaced by a sense of cynicism and disillusionment. The war had shown the Greeks the extent to which their leaders were willing to go to achieve power. This shift in cultural values is reflected in the works of the period, with tragedies becoming darker and more complex. Moreover, the war had significant effects on Greek society. The massive loss of life resulted in a demographic crisis, with many cities losing a significant portion of their population. Economically, the war led to the decline of Athens as a major economic power, and the rise of Corinth and Thebes. But perhaps the most significant impact of the Peloponnesian War was how it set the stage for the eventual conquest of Greece. Weakened by the war, the Greek city-states were unable to resist the rising power of Philip II of Macedon. His son, Alexander the Great, would later go on to conquer the entirety of the known world, a feat that would have been unimaginable without the weakening of the Greek city-states in the aftermath of the Peloponnesian War. In many ways, the Peloponnesian War marked the end of the golden age of Greece. It was a conflict that revealed the limitations of Greek city-state politics and the destructive potential of their rivalries. The Peloponnesian War, a turning point in ancient history, continues to resonate with us even today. Our journey through the tumultuous events of the Peloponnesian War has come to an end. We've unraveled its causes, a tangled web of power plays and alliances. We've walked through its course, a brutal stretch of battles and strategies. We've faced its conclusion, a sobering reminder of the cost of conflict. And we've grappled with its consequences, the echoes of which still resonate today. The Peloponnesian War, a testament to the power struggles, resilience, and the human spirit, remains etched in the annals